Hello friends, welcome back. I'm Nick and this is MSFS Flight Plans, where each and every new video brings us one step closer to saving the entire world through flight simulation. If you saw that last flight at Easter Island, you know I was utterly confounded by the hype surrounding the Brazil World Update, because up to that point, every flight I had taken out here looked exactly the same as it did before the World Update. Then, once again revealing my own ignorance and incompetence, I realized that you actually have to install that one from the marketplace. It does not come preloaded like all the older ones do. And as you already know, if you've been out here to see this, it not only looks incredible, but for a photogrammetry city, has some truly astounding performance on the GPU front. I don't know why, but it does, so you can feel free to really crank up the settings out here. So we're going to take this trip in the 407. I really wanted to try to break our recent string of helicopter videos for this one, but there's so much in such a small area out here that it didn't make much sense to try to do it with a plane. So we're going to hop in the old Whirlybird one more time for this one. But check out this area where we're at. I've got a couple of add-ons. All of them are freeware for some of these heliports and one of the airports. Look at this. I'll show you where we are on the map in just a minute, but they've got everything out here. And all these said they were not ready for 2024. So these were all built for 2020. I think the dev just took like one of every helicopter and threw it out here. We've got some animated people out here, and even with my train level of detail set up over 200, everything else at Ultra, see that guy walking around? We might just get a little bit of stuttering out here, but we've got the photogrammetry, we're in a helicopter, and everything is really, really smooth, which is great. Look at that. There's like a bird sitting up there. We'll take another quick little circle around here once we get up in the air. But look at this. And wait till you see this airport we're going to check out in a little bit. One of the best freeware add-ons I've ever seen. This is just great. And I think he also took one of every character that you can get out here too. And I finally found a file of Dave's 3D people. That guy's even got a COVID mask on. Look at this. Just great. Just lovely. But if you've ever tried, that's a big asset pack for a lot of the third-party add-ons that are out there, if they're on flightsim.to. And if you try to get Dave's 3D people from flightsim.to, it says the file's not there. So I now have it because it was included with one of these add-on packs. So if you download this, look for that in there and make sure you don't delete it, because you'll probably need it for something else again in the future. All right, let's hop in this bad boy. And I was having a little trouble starting it up, so that's why we're starting with it started. And okay, good, it kept me on the left side. That's going to be a little bit easier for this flight, so let's just see where we're going really quick. And sorry if it sounded like I was yelling before, but I couldn't even hear myself because it was so loud out there, which is probably pretty true to life. Let's take the centering off for just a second. So here's Rio, if you're wondering where in the world it is. Gigantic country of Brazil, way down here on the coast. I'm sure you probably know where it is, but we're going to take a little trip around all the stuff that is worth checking out here in the sim, I think. Again, I'm not from this area, never been here. This is only about 24 hours worth of, not even that, just a night's worth of research on the internet. So for anyone else who hasn't been here, this is probably about as good as you could do. Blame the internet if I got some of this wrong. And I know we do have quite a few members from Brazil, so feel free to correct me if I need to be corrected. So here's where we're going to start. Right down here along this lagoon. We're going to come up here. I'm going to do a quick lap around this thing. We'll come on up here, check out the Christ the Redeemer statue. Circle back around here to look at the big racetrack they got there. Then come down to these beaches. These are some of the best looking beaches I've seen in the sim. They are so detailed. You can even see like the little tire marks in the sand. Just incredible. And then we'll come up here to Sugarloaf. They got the cable car in here. And I don't know if the cable car that you're about to see comes in the sim, because when I did not have my MAMUs, I cleared everything out of my community folder earlier because I was having some problems, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. When I did that, even with the World Update installed, I don't think I was seeing the cable cars here, and you will see them now. So if you're not seeing them, it may be because I have the MAMU Design cable car pack. So we'll come on down here, check out everything downtown, fly over the airport. Well, there's the airport's way up here. We're not going to go up to that one, but we'll fly over Dumont out here and check out all this stuff. Just looks so incredible. We're going to have a bunch of military ships, some cruise ships, a Ferris wheel that just looks okay. And then we'll check out their big stadiums they have. There's a lot of vestiges of the Olympics still out here, so we'll check that stuff out. And then here's that Payware Airport. They have a big aerospace museum out here, and this puts all the planes out here. We'll go take 2 passes of that. We'll come down the runway and then come around this side of it to get a nice look at it. Check out some more Olympic stuff, and then cruise on down this way to check out some more Olympic stuff and come to some more heliports. So the one we're coming into is also a freeware add-on, and I threw a few more in here, and if you download this bookmark file, which will be included in the video description along with this flight plan if you want to take it just like we are, this also will be incomplete because neither of these are selectable in the sim, so you may have to redraw it to an airport if you're going to take a plane so that you can load it from a little nav map into the sim, so just a heads up with that. But everywhere that I put an H is, and there are way more payware heliports you can pick than the ones I've got. There's already tons of them in the sim. Most of them don't look that great. The ones on top of the buildings look pretty good. So this is another one here, and just to show you what it looks like, it's just a little turf thing, but it kind of cleaned it up a little bit, which is nice. The spot we're leaving from, obviously. And I think there was one more around here somewhere. There's a great big one right now. I'm just showing you this now because I'll probably forget later. Down here somewhere, there is another huge one. I can't recall where it is, but right along the coast. I mean, a really gigantic one down here that looked like it was pretty well done up too, but I can't recall exactly where it is now. So that's the plan of attack, and the total distance for this is 49 miles, and this helicopter is pretty quick. So let me get the centering back on. Bring that over here so I can see where we're going. And zoom in just a little bit. Okay. Alright, I haven't been in this bad boy in a while. I did take it for my test flight, and it's working pretty well. And I don't know if this one is ready for, or designated as, ready for 2024 or not either. The only bad thing we're going to have around here, other than, I mean, the photogrammetry really on the structures looks amazing, astounding. It's up there with some of the best in the sim, but we've still got the blob trees, unfortunately, and there's going to be some pretty big sections of them here, so that's really the only detractor about this flight. So let's just see what we got here before we come out over the big lagoon. Well, we already kind of saw all that on the ground, didn't we? But we'll get a bird's eye view of everything. Look at that. There's some more pelicans or something down there on the coastline. That's just great. Love it. That's the kind of add-on I'd make. I'd take like one of everything and just put it down there. Looks good, doesn't it? And look at the performance. Really no stuttering at all. With stuff animated on the ground, PG everywhere, photogrammetry everywhere, boats, you name it. Very nice. So this body of water is the Rodrigo de Freitas Lagoon, which connects to the ocean via a tiny little channel we'll see when we circle back around. And one interesting little bit of history about this thing that I thought was interesting is that they built a sugar mill on the banks of it back in the 1500s, but they were under constant threat by the native inhabitants, so to keep everyone back, they started spreading the clothes of people infected with smallpox around the perimeter, which apparently did the trick. Okay, so right up here on the north side of the lagoon, we're going to fly over Parque Lage Palace. I think that's how you say that. Sitting in the middle of a location that used to be part of that original sugarcane plantation. It's in this patch of trees right up here. I'll slow down so you can look at it. In the 1920s, one of the well-to-do locals bought it up and had a massive replica of a Roman palace built up here to impress his Italian opera-singing wife. There it is right there down in the trees. You see it? It was opened to the public in 2016 and even served as the hospitality house for the British Olympic team when they were out here for the Olympics. And we'll see plenty of other vestiges of that on this trip. And even Snoop Dogg made a music video out there at that place in 2003, which I'll link for all you hip-hop fans. Lots of shots around this area. It's pretty cool. Whether you like that music or not aside. And now we're going to make our way up to the most iconic landmark in Rio. That, of course, is the Christ the Redeemer statue perched atop Copacabana Mountain. Including the base, it stands at 124 feet tall with a wingspan of 92 feet, making it the world's largest Art Deco-style statue on Earth. And they opened that thing up in 1931. I didn't realize it was that old. But the original design, so I read, was slightly different from what we see today. The first renderings had Jesus holding a cross in one hand and a globe in the other, and I don't think his arms were outstretched either. I couldn't find what the original design looked like. And that was what they were going to go with until something changed, but unfortunately I couldn't figure out what that was. I really like how the sides of all these exposed rock faces look out here. You can tell they didn't just do that default cliff stuff on a lot of this. It really looks like it does in the satellite images. I was comparing them. And just ignore the blob trees scattered around the area here. There's a big patch of them right down the top. And as you can imagine, this statue receives quite a few lightning strikes, paving the way for some pretty impressive photographs and prophecies of doom, of course. But I think so far the most frightening repercussions were probably the repair costs. I think one time it blew a hole in the head of him, blew his thumb off on another one. I think it blew off a finger on another one. It's wild. But then they installed a bunch of lightning rods at some point. I was reading, I don't know if that kept it from breaking anymore, but I bet this thing gets hit constantly. Big pointy thing on the highest mountain in the area? Yeah. And just for the fun of it, I had to look up the tallest statue in the world, and this thing here isn't even remotely close. They got one in India called the Statue of Unity that depicts a guy named Sardar Patel, which is a rather unique surname for that part of the world. But that guy is just under 600 feet tall, which dwarfs this thing by comparison. I saw a little drawing of what they would look like if they were next to each other. This thing is like a speck next to that. But they completed that one in India in 2018 at a cost equivalent of $422 million US. Big time. And I was kind of curious about how the heck people get up to this. I didn't know if that little thing down to the right of it was like an elevator shaft or something. And in real life, which you can't see here in the sim, they got like a switchback on the other side, so they say you can either hike up here, if you've got some pretty good endurance. Let's take a look at this bad boy. Or they also have a little train that comes up here, and then in the sim, in the satellite map, you can see they got a road that some buses can come up here. Kind of looks like it's floating a little bit there, but if I wasn't pausing right here to look at it, you probably wouldn't notice it. They probably had to slap it on top of whatever flat stuff was underneath it. Looks good, though. As we come back down the slopes here, we're going to see the Rio Botanical Garden down on our... Well, we're kind of going to fly right over the top of it. It's on that next hill there. And when we're done, I'll show you what it looks like on the satellite map. It's way too treed over here to see anything. And it looks pretty flat on the satellite map. But it's tucked down in there somewhere. They started building that up in 1808, and today is comprised of roughly 130 acres containing around 6,500 species of plants, some endangered. And then directly on the other side of that is the Jockey Club Brasileiro. I guess that's how you'd say that. Which opened in 1926 under a different name. But they say this is the largest one of these in the country. And as I was reading about that lagoon, it sounds like they might have made that out of fill dirt from some early dredging or something they were doing out there. I couldn't really decipher it completely, so I could be wrong about that. And I was also reading they have just an insane number of stables down there, which I'm guessing are those things, those buildings on this side of it, those long things. But I think they said they can hold like 1,000 horses or something, which is crazy. And I think they have some kind of big blowout event down there each year. So the channel, which we won't really see until we get down to the beach, the one that connects that thing to the ocean, is going to be... Well, we'll just wait till we come around. There's no way we can see it from here. You'll be able to see it once we're coming. It runs perpendicular to the beach. But I read they also have always had pollution problems from that lagoon there. I guess it's not cycling the water out to the ocean well enough. And so they're trying to find some ways to clean that up. I guess a lot of people got sick during the Olympics, swimming around in it or something. Okay, so the channel, which I don't know why I'm so fascinated by it. See that little dark line coming? It's about to touch our left pillar there. We'll look back along that, and then you'll see the little channel cutting through there. So there's the outflow area right along the beach, which looks great. You can actually see where the sand's been washed away a little bit as we come around. Look at that. And I gotta tell you guys, I mean, I really think these are some of the best looking beaches we've seen. Look at all the little people down there. Wait till we get up to the next beach. It looks fantastic. Other than that line, right where the water kind of comes up there on the sand, I mean, even the breakers look pretty good. If the masking went out just a little bit further, but then again, if the masking went out further, it would be even more obvious, so that looks pretty good. Can't complain. Okay, we're coming up on the beautiful beaches of the Copacabana, and I only emphasize that because we've flown over several towns with the same name in other parts of South America. But before we get to that, we'll cruise past Fort Copacabana on the tip of this point sticking out up ahead. It's that far point up there. And that was built in 1914 as one of many harbor defense positions they slapped out here, and originally held two massive cannons they named Barroso and Osorio. And those bad boys could hurl a nearly 1,000-pound shell up to 14 miles into the ocean. So the thing on this side of it, that big open area that looks like an oval, I think that's a parking lot. The fort itself is on the very end there. But in 1922, some revolutionaries in the Brazilian army commandeered the fort and aimed the cannons at the city. And they actually managed to squeeze off a few rounds before the Navy started shelling it with one of their battleships, leading to a prompt surrender after 2 rounds scored a direct hit. Oh, look at that. It looks like you can actually see the cannon barrel sticking out of that middle one there. Awesome. I think they removed the original cannons and replaced them with something else. I don't know why they did. But that's pretty cool. And they're still aimed at the city. Okay, I'm going to get a little bit closer here to this beach so you can see how good it looks. Other than being one of the best places in the world to celebrate New Year's Eve, for those of us here in the States, it holds a very special place in our hearts as the inspiration behind Barry Manilow's 1978 hit of the same name, Copacabana, in parentheses, at the Copa. And the original idea for that song, look down there on the beach, you can see all the little drag marks from where they're pulling tents out or cars were coming down there or something. But the original idea for that song came to Barry and his co-writer Bruce Sussman while they were staying down here at the Copacabana Hotel. I think it's called the Palace Hotel, which is also iconic. But the song isn't actually about this place. It's about a Manhattan nightclub, also called the Copacabana, that Manilow used to haunt in the 1960s. There's one more fort on the top of this thing here, and it's got a really, really long name. And I'm going to just slow down to see if I was a little bit too far away. I'm going to see what it looks like from directly above it here. But the giveaway for this not being the location is that the Copacabana in the song was the hottest place north of Havana. And of course, we're well south of it here. So there's the fort right on the top of it. Yeah, I mean, it kind of looks like that in real life, so I guess that's pretty close. Yeah, it's also pretty heavily treed over. Any of you guys not from the US who don't know what I'm talking about, I'll link the video for that song too. Just be prepared to cringe for 3 minutes straight before you click on that one. So here comes Sugarloaf and the cable cars, which aren't really connected to where they should be, but at least there's some cable cars, which is cool. What a great looking beach that is too. Look at that. There's a little monument back there of some kind. You can barely see the cable cars to the left. You can definitely see those right in front of us there. And look, it's just going like right in the side of the mountain. Should be a little bit higher than that. And learning about this thing, I discovered it was named after the form in which sugar was sold before they started granulating and cubing it. I had no idea. If you've never seen a picture of a real Sugarloaf, you should check that out. Look at the sides of this mountain. How great does that look? And down by the water, man, it's just perfect. The shape of the things, which does look a lot like that, came from the containers in which it was made by straining and drying molasses. So they dump it into the top and then just kind of keep rinsing water through it until all the brown stuff came out, and then let it dry, and then you had a big cake of sugar, a Sugarloaf. We got one more gun battery right down here along this little peninsula, and this one's called Fort San Jose. And this one's been out here for quite a while. It was originally part of a fortress system built in 1618 that covered pretty much that whole clump of land there. Look how good that looks. And then they beefed it all up again in 1872, and it remained in active installation until 1991. I don't know if you caught that one. It's going to be off the right side of the helicopter now, so we can't see it. There's another little fort out there. It looks like it didn't model as anything in the sim, but then when I show you it on the satellite map at the end, it just looks like a big slab of concrete. And as far as I can tell, I don't think any of this stuff here saw any action. Okay, so we're going to fly along this beach up here, heading towards the north, which is bordered by some very beautiful parks that are definitely worth exploring if you really want to take your time when you fly out here again. And there's a few landmarks I want to point out as we head north, because this is going to be our best view of them. We're going to see this big pyramid-shaped thing by downtown, which is actually more conical in real life. And that is the Rio Cathedral. Its former name is the Metropolitan Cathedral of St. Sebastian, who also happens to be the patron saint of the city. And it was built between 1964 and 79 and boasts a height of 246 feet. You can just see it off to the left there by downtown. We'll look once we get a little bit closer. I'll look out the left side. And it has a seating capacity of 5,000, but I read it can manage up to 20,000 if you go nuts to butts in there. There it is over there, see it? And if you look at this little hook of this harbor right there, see it's kind of pointing over to the other shore. Just on the other side of that, that rectangular building is the city's Museum of Modern Art, and that little anvil-shaped thing just on the other side of it is a concert hall called the Viva Rio. And here we are crossing right over Santos Dumont Airport, and as we do, I'll remind everyone that this is not a recording of a real flight, so please refrain from commenting about how you would never do this in real life. But the aviation history of this harbor goes back to the 1930s, when they started landing seaplanes out here, quite a few of them apparently. But in 34 they dumped a bunch of dirt along there to create the first runway, which is just 1,300 feet. Not very long now either, only around 4,300. And that little tiny building in the water up there ahead to our left is the old Customs House, which is now a museum of cultural history. And the spot it sits on is called Fiscal Island, but its original name was Rat Island. And we can probably guess why. And then directly to the left of that is the Island of Cobras, which is awesome. And that's a big Navy base. We'll see some ships down here tied up next to it. And they have two beautiful looking dry docks. Here, we'll see one of them right on this side, and then there's a smaller one up on the other end. You see the ship there in the dry dock? Looks fantastic. Really, really good. That ship looks a little bit funky, and that one looks like it's about to tip into the water. And over there, see that building on the other side, on the other coast, that long orange-shaped building? Just on the other side of that, there's a little submarine history museum, which is too small to see here in the sim. I'll show you that at the end too, but it looks pretty good. I did fly closer to that. And that thing right to the left is the Museum of Tomorrow, showcasing a bunch of science exhibits, and they completed that in 2015 as part of the revitalization endeavor for the city as they prepared for the 2016 Olympics. And then here are the cruise terminals. Look pretty good. How's that one look? Not so good. They should probably bring that one over the dry dock. Looks like there's something wrong with the back of it. They got a little tender tied up next to it too. And then here comes the Ferris wheel called the Yup Star. And I don't know when they built that. I didn't look, but probably also for the Olympic stuff when all that was going down. Yeah, it looks a little bit bland here in the sim, doesn't it? Okay, so we're going to fly up here and see where the original Royal Palace was and the zoo. But the palace, which became a museum, the National Museum of Brazil, burned down in a fire, like totally burned down, except for the exterior walls in 2018. But from 1822 to 1889, it was the Imperial Palace. And then they converted it to a museum in 1892. You see that clamshell-looking thing directly over the top of our console? I'm pretty sure that's a mall, which is really wild because all the stuff is down there in the center. I could see little icons for shops, mostly restaurants, actually. Let me see if I can get it down by our little footwell there so you can see down into it. But it's all set really, really low to the ground. It looks like it has like little canvas tents or something over the top of it. Look at that. Okay, so the former palace slash museum is going to be this thing right in the middle of this green space up here. I'll tell you when it's kind of in the corner if I got both my hands on the controls. The zoo is right on the other side of that, but we can't see much of it because it's all treed over. That's the palace right down there, coming into the corner of our window. And now, when you look at it on the satellite map, they've got something big and white just covering the area where the roof is now, because there is no roof. I saw some pictures after it burned up, and it was totally just a shell. And you certainly won't miss Maracanã Stadium over there. That opened in 1950 and is currently home to 2 local football clubs. And its stated capacity now is around 73,000, but in the same year it opened, they jammed nearly 180,000 in there. And it's hosted more than 100,000 spectators, at least 284 times. It's also the largest stadium in the country, as of right now, and the 3rd largest on the continent. Look how great this city looks. I am so tempted to just fly down low and cut in between all these buildings. I'm not going to do it, though. So as I mentioned in the beginning, I had to dump my community folder and uninstall the sim and backtrack some of the drivers and stuff. I was having an issue, and I'm only mentioning this in case you guys run into it, because it was incredibly hard to resolve. The sim was loading in perfectly fine, and then I would get to where I would hit fly now, and it would go, you know, it kind of zooms in on the world map, and that little wheel starts spinning in the lower right, and it would never come out of that. 2 whole nights I was battling that, and I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what else to do, so I went into the MSFS forums and found a post from like 3 years ago, and someone said it was the only thing about this particular solution. They said, go in there before you hit fly now, reduce your train level of detail down to 10 in the settings, and then it'll load in, and then once you're in, you can adjust it back to whatever you want. I did that, and it immediately loaded in. I had to do it 3 or 4 times for several flights, and now it's perfectly fine again. So if you're running into that issue, give that a shot. Look at that thing down there. It looks like another church. See that sloping triangle thing? Look at that. Looks like it's got a belfry on it. And I'm also having bandwidth issues pretty much every night, right at 9 o'clock, which makes me think it's a local throttling issue, like spot on at 9. Right now it's 9:45, so we're very, very lucky that I'm able to do this. I got a buddy that lives like 3 miles away, and he never has that problem. So I don't know what's going on. When I do an internet speed test, it's like 800 megabytes a second, so I don't know what's up with it. I can't believe I'm not having that problem tonight, and I'm very grateful for that. Up next is another big-looking stadium, although the capacity is slightly less than that last one. This one's called Nilton Santos, and was completed in 2007 for the Pan American Games in the same year. We're going to see some other stuff they built up for the Pan Am Games, which they reused a lot of it for the Olympics. I think they did that with this, too. But they expanded the capacity to around 60,000 for the Olympics, and then used it for several events, too. I don't know if they did the opening stuff down here or not. We're going to see the big Olympic park back down by the coast. That looks great, doesn't it? It looks a lot bigger than that last one, but the seating capacity, well, it's all track down there, that's why. Look at these rusty roof buildings. If you get close, you can see like shingles missing and stuff, or discolored shingles on top of these. It's amazingly detailed. Looks so good. Okay, guys, so here comes my big add-on treat for everybody. Our next stop is going to be Alfonsos, I think it's just Afonsos, or maybe Afonsos Air Force Base, which I was going to fly past just to mention on the way to another Olympic site that we'll see on the other side of it. And when I first came out here, it was just your standard default airport, totally lame, totally boring, which is a huge bummer because they have got a gigantic aviation museum out here. And as usual, I found a freeware add-on. I always do sweeps for add-ons for everywhere we're going to go, see what's in the vicinity, see what all looks good, make sure nothing's going to conflict with what's in the sim already. And this one is one of the best freeware add-ons I've seen so far. It builds this entire place out and looks so awesome that we're going to fly past it twice. And it's going to be that big open area just up ahead off the left side of our nose. I'm not sure how long the runway is, but it doesn't look super long. So first we're going to just do a pass right down the runway. All the museum stuff will be to the left. and then we'll come back around over the buildings of the museum so we can see all the planes they put out there. And I don't know if the planes are accurate to the... I can't imagine they are, but maybe they are. Accurate to the planes that are really out there. But it looks really, really good. And as far as the real-life details go, this place is astoundingly old as far as aviation goes. They started a flying club out here in 1912, becoming a military aviation school just 2 years later. And they had a lot of Italian pilots, I think, if I was understanding it correctly. They were out here doing the training. So it only lasted as an aviation school for a couple years because World War I got in the way. But then in 1931, they made it a docking station for a massive German airship, the Graf Zeppelin, which was using Rio as a stopover point, and you've got to take a look at that thing if you've never seen it. It is huge. And then in 1941, it came under the control of the Brazilian Air Force, and is now home to their Air Force University and this awesome aviation museum, which opened in 1976, the year I was born. So what do you think? Maybe like a 5,000-foot runway? Maybe shorter than that. Not real long. Wikipedia listed, I was checking out the website to see what exhibits they had down there. They said they have over 70 planes in their permanent collection. All of them were listed on the Wikipedia page, and about a dozen that they're rotating through. And I am suspicious that perhaps Asobo might have used this place for their inspiration for their famous flyers and local legends, because I think they got one of all those down there. All kinds of really, really cool stuff. So as we're flying past this, take note of the grass, which probably has nothing to do with the add-on. I mean, you can see all the mow marks and everything, and it looks so cool. I don't know why it's got those geometric shapes in it, though. Really, really well done. And then we'll start to see the planes down at the other end, but every building and everything has been modded up, including some like piles of gravel and excavators and trucks and stuff. Just a really great job. This is totally worthy of charging for it. But I get so excited when people put this kind of effort in and then don't charge for it. That is true passion. Let's see how low we can get this thing. Runway looks good. Look at the grass down there. Okay, so you can see some of the planes coming into view there on the left, so we'll come to the end of the runway, circle back around just over the tops of those buildings. That'll give us the best view of the planes. And look at this. No stuttering whatsoever. Unbelievable. So help me out with this, guys. If I had to install this from the marketplace, does that mean that it loaded it up locally to my computer? Because that could explain the incredible performance out here. Because most of the other photogrammetry cities, we could not get away with this in a helicopter with the graphic settings this high. Okay, let's see if I keep from climbing way up in the air as I make this turn here. Not too bad. So just off to the left, there's that big gravel heap with some trucks and pipes sitting down there. Awesome. And then here comes all the planes. So I'm guessing that track and all that is probably part of the university. I don't know why else they would have a big track at a bigger... Oh, look at that. It's like a little RC plane runway and the tiny little plane down there. Oh, man, that is so cool. And they put the runway markings and everything on it. That is awesome. They left nothing out of this. Cars, planes. I'm not good with my plane silhouettes, so I really couldn't tell you what's down there. I think they have a DC-3 up here at the end. And there is one there in real life. We'll look at it on the map at the end. That's pretty close to where this one is. Ooh, oh, they got a few flat planes in there. Man, you should just throw some planes over that. I think that's a DC-3 down there. Does it look like it? Pretty close. How great is this, guys? Just such a good job. Wonderful, wonderful. So this will be linked with all the others in the video description. You'll definitely want to fly it with this in here. Otherwise, you're going to get bland airport. Look, there's just junk and cars and construction stuff everywhere. This is amazing. Colorful. Even the parking lot lines are done up. I should have gone there and got on the terminal. What if you did the inside of the terminal, too? That'd be incredible. But I read that as of 2017, there's no modern units that are assigned to the base, so I guess they're mostly using it for a support facility. Which is fine with me. I'd rather see all the old stuff in the museum anyway. Do you hear that occasional thudding noise? I only hear it in this helicopter, and it's when I'm working the anti-torque pedals. It always makes that thud. It did it in 2022, and I don't know if that's true to life or not. But it sounds like I'm accidentally hitting my microphone, which I'm not. That's the helicopter doing that. Okay, so up ahead here, we're going to see the Olympic rafting area where they have the whitewater stuff that's man-made, which is awesome. It's not real rapids. Look at this train yard down here. Look at that. Oh! See all the discoloration on the roofs and stuff with the different panels? Superb. Absolutely superb. And then next to the whitewater thing, they are going to have a hard surface bike racing track with like the ramps and all that on it. And then off to the, I guess it'll be the left now. See that light blue colored area up there? That's where the rapids are. And then off to the left of that is the off-road BMX area. And then after this, we'll see their shooting area. What is this, like a bus yard up here? Either that or a collection of very large pencils. Let's see what this is. Is that school buses? No, those are too long to be school buses. Those look like those tandem-style buses that have that like little corridor in between them. Probably city transportation. Look at this thing. Look how good these rapids look. And there's a little bike thing right down there in the corner of our window. Look at that. I love it. Absolutely love it. And then over on the other side of it, you can see that winding little course going through the woods, I guess, over there. I'm guessing that's where the off-road stuff is, but that looks fantastic. So great. Other than the blob trees. And just over this hill to the left is where we'll see the shooting centers, which also look great. Oh, what is that? It's about to come behind our pillar here. It's like a little tower. Got a little stutter there. Look at that. What is that thing? You see it down there? That's not on top of the hill, so it can't be like a lookout. Huh. It's like a water tower. They forgot to put the water container on. Okay, so here's where they got it set up for skeet and all that. And I'm guessing they're shooting towards that mountain there because they certainly wouldn't be shooting the other direction because there's houses and buildings out there. And another big patch of blob trees. Come on, Asobo, just fix that up. That's my only real lingering complaint. I could even be more patient with planes coming online and stuff like that, but, I mean, it's fixed. It doesn't do that in 2020, not nearly as bad anyway, so there's got to be a remedy for it. Let's get on that one real quick. Oh, and you're about to see a whole bunch of power lines up here. Mamu's power lines are back. You can now purchase them. I got these on Sim Market, and unfortunately, this is not a great area to showcase them because they've got some double towers up here. And as you saw, the cable cars weren't quite lining up just right, so maybe it's just this area, but I've flown over a lot of other areas that look great, and it's so nice to have the power lines back. So we're going to head back down to our arrival heliport by the coast and check out a few more sites once we get down there. One of them will be that big Olympic area, but since we finally have a few minutes to breathe, I'll give you some details about the history of this area. The first Europeans to arrive were, of course, the Portuguese, which is still the official language of Brazil, for those of you that didn't know that. And those guys sailed into that big harbor by downtown for the first time on January 1st of 1502, which is also why they called the area the River of January, Rio de Janeiro. Okay, you're going to see some power lines right up here, and we're going to get a double tower, and a tree over there is also supposed to be a tower, so I don't know what's going on, but these should have the balls on them and everything since we're so close to an airport, which is just so nice. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, I'm not going to complain about it all the time, but having it in there certainly is nice. See the little balls on them? And there's the double tower. I'm not sure which of those is the real one, but one of those is super, super tall. In 1555, 500 French colonists rolled in and built a fort on a tiny little island right next to Santos Dumont Airport, which is still there. I'll show it to you on the little nav map at the end. We saw it when we flew by, but I didn't have time to mention it. Well, the island's still there. The fort's not. They tore that down a long time ago. And the Portuguese, of course, were having none of that, so they finally booted them out in 1567. But the city itself was officially founded by Portugal just 2 years earlier in 1665. And they called it São Sebastião do Rio de Janeiro, shortening it up a little bit over time. And as I mentioned before, it started generating some wealth in the sugarcane business, but when gold and diamonds started coming out of the ground in the late 1600s, money really started rolling into the area, becoming the colonial capital in 1763. And in 1808, during the sweeping conquest of Napoleon in Europe, the royals and most of the aristocracy of Lisbon decided things were a little bit more chill with a whole ocean between them and Mr. Bonaparte, so they moved themselves and the capital of the nation of Portugal over here, becoming the only European capital not on the European continent. But with so much money to be made and so many nobility unwilling to work for it, the number of slaves in the city swelled to anywhere between 500,000 to 1 million shortly thereafter. And then in 1822, Prince Pedro proclaimed Brazil's independence from Portugal and decided to keep Rio as the capital of the new empire. But the imperial age only lasted until 1889, at which time Brazil became a pseudo-republic that functioned more like an oligarchy. And once the people got tired of all that nonsense, they started revolting, including that whole dust-up at Fort Copacabana. That was part of all that I mentioned earlier. But since everything in Rio was pretty much everything in this whole massive country since the very beginning in the mid-1900s, politicians started floating the idea of moving the capital to a more central location, away from all the crowding out here and the growing crime. So in 1960, they moved it from here up to Brasilia, about 500 miles to the northwest, which still isn't really central, but more central than this, I suppose. Okay, so right along the, I guess would be the northern edge of this big lake up here, and you're certainly not going to miss it. That thing right down to our left by the side of our console is also a mall, I believe. Man, between soccer fields, swimming pools, and malls, they might have like a 1-to-1 ratio with the population of those things out here. But that big open area ahead is the Olympic Park with its massive stadiums and arenas. And the location where it sits now was originally a Formula 1 track. Not sure when they tore that down, but they started building it out for, again, the 2007 Pan Am Games, and then repurposed a lot of it for the Olympics. That first stadium there on the corner, it's got a pool outside of it, but there's a big pool inside of it, so that's a swimming complex. And since all the others are covered, I don't know what they were doing in there. And I really couldn't get a sense of whether or not they're using it for anything today. As you'll see, it is completely vacant, and in all the satellite maps, not a single car anywhere out here. So I'm not sure what's going on with all this. But that's a lot of probably prime real estate to be sitting vacant. Look at all that stuff on the ground, the colors and everything. Well, there's an open stadium. That looks like a bullfighting arena. What if they do that out here? And then we got another big open spot, that triangular thing there just in front of us off the left side of the nose, which is even more apocalyptic looking, was also part of the Olympic build-out, but I don't think they ever put any structures on that. I think they were using it as an open event space, but it's also been totally abandoned and vandalized for almost a decade now. I read the last time they used it was for a field hospital during COVID. Yikes. Just adding to the creepiness of it. Look at that. Just totally dead, totally vacant. I mean, if this really was the high-rent real estate, I'm sure they would be building something else out here, but they got a lot of big buildings. These look like condos or something over here. Pretty close to the coastline, too. Okay, so our arrival helipad, which I have not yet seen, I just installed it, and it looked good in the thumb, so we'll see when we get down there how it looks, is going to be by the coast, but I did see just before this flight a huge open pit quarry out here that looked really, really cool. And I'm looking at little nav map now, just glancing. I think it's going to be dead ahead of us, and I couldn't tell there were any mountains out here, so I think it's probably right on the other side of that mountain right in front of us, and it looks like we got some more power lines there, too. So we'll see how it looks, swing around the side of that mountain, and come on in. And while we have a second, this will be our first entry into this quarter's flight plan competition, flight plan recommendation competition. And I'll wait till we get 2 or 3 more, and then we will close it and start voting. I will link all the videos that we have selected, and they all have to be videos that were uploaded by members, or at least recommended by members, that we then uploaded here as a tour flight on the channel, and then we'll vote as a sim community. The winner will get a $75 gift card to the sim vendor of their choice. This looks amazing. Look at this. The watercolor is pretty much spot on, if not perfectly spot on. And look at the sides of that. You can see all the blasting marks and everything going on the side. Holy smokes, that might be one of the best looking quarries we've ever seen. Never mind the fact that it's gigantic. I wonder how deep that thing is. Because you know at one time it wouldn't fill with water. And I wonder if it flooded on accident or if they just let it fill up. There's some more of that open cliff face. Looks just great. So good. I'm really shocked. I thought I was going to have to start recording in the middle of the day or something, which is a problem because kids are running in and out, dogs are barking, people are slamming cabinets and stuff because of this bandwidth issue. I'm just stunned that we haven't run into it tonight. And I'm really hoping when I get that new computer, if it ever arrives, all of these little Microsoft crud build-up problems will go away when I get a clean start. I've kind of thought about just completely wiping this one and starting over again because you know all that stuff just builds up over time and messes with everything. Okay, so this area I have not flown over yet. We'll see what all there is to see down here. And the helipad should be... See that road right in front of us? It's going to be on this side of that road over to our left. And it's tucked amongst a bunch of buildings. And I'm pretty sure it is a site for just private tours of Rio. That's probably it right over there on the left. And it looked like from the thumbs they got a couple static helicopters down there. A nice huge landing pad, which I hope is the one that's open right in the middle of it all. I can't really tell from here. Boy, are they densely packed down here. Forget about having a yard, huh? Look at those houses down there. Everybody's got a pool, though. And this is what I'm talking about. Let's see how close we can get to these big condos here before anything starts looking droopy and saggy and photogrammetry-y. Look at that. Usually when you get this close, you can start to tell that things are getting a little bit angular and jagged and not so great looking, but this still looks real nice up close like this. And man, if you want to do a little building-to-building helicopter landing practice This area probably competes with LA. They have got them all over the place down there, and you don't even have to put add-ons in. Most of the rooftop pads look pretty good. So I think that's probably it right there, dead ahead of us. I hope it is, because we're coming in pretty low if it's not. And it's a big open area anyway, so we'll see how it looks. With the piles of dirt down there to the left look great. And there's no blob trees out here. What is going on? This is amazing. So all these mountains out here were caused, I had to look into that because these are very unique geological features. The only other place I can think of that looks kind of like this is off the coast of Vietnam, I think. And it's caused by two different types of rock, the harder of which does not erode as fast, and that's what we see sticking up all over the place like this. Well, that's a big landing pad, but it looks a little bit droopy, doesn't it? It's kind of wavy. It's not totally flat. Alright, well, we're committed now. We're going to land on it. It looks like this corner closest to us is pretty flat. And man, the resolution's not that great either. But we do have some nice static helicopters. Looks like we got an Airbus out there in front of us. And I didn't get a good enough look at that thing on the right. That might be a 500E right there next to us. Got a little guy down there. Maybe I should park by him. Nope, I'm going to try the jagged pad. Oh man, look how bad this resolution looks. Okay, I'm going to try this flatter corner here. See how we do. I really can't tell how high we are because it's so blurry. Well, now it's coming. Okay, well, there we go. It's still all wavy looking though. All right. Well, let's see how we did. Yeah. Okay. Oh, and there's the bandwidth warning. Well, that's just perfect. Okay. Well, the timing was good. Welcome to my nightly sim life, guys. The struggle is real. We can just drop a little nav map over the top of that and not worry about it. I don't even know how to shut this thing down, so I'll just talk over that engine noise. Alright, take that off. How do we track? I always like to see how closely I followed that. Pretty good. Up until the very end there, I was totally VFR flying that, so that's not too shabby at all. Okay, so let's take a quick tour of this area here. So, what we really couldn't see from the air, and is kind of tough to even see here in the sim, and I had no idea until I took this test flight that this whole area was on the side of a mountain as we were flying over that. It looks pretty flat there, doesn't it? But it was so heavily treed over, you really couldn't see any of that. That's the Botanical Garden. There's the old Jockey Club, and then here is the big mansion where Snoop Dogg was chilling. And all the maps are pretty blurry. Even the Google map up close was pretty blurry. I didn't look at the Bing map. That's usually the clearest of them all. And then up here is the old Christ the Redeemer statue. Wait till you see this thing. It's a total mess in here. Look at that. And then here's the little track that the buses would come up, I think, and I'm guessing this is probably the train track coming up this way. But boy, is that a windy road. And then where you get on all that stuff is back over here, I think. Again, I haven't been out here before, but I'm kind of guessing that's probably where that goes down because there's nothing else really out there. Okay, so we checked all that stuff out. Let's see how close we can get to the fort. Oh yeah, those are definitely cannons. Look at that. And they're still aiming at the town. Very nice. Looked a lot better in the sim than it does there. And then here's the big beach. And look at that. They really do have all those little lines going out there, probably where they're dragging the tents down or something. Was it really packed down here too, like it was in the sim? No, I think there is even more people in the sim than there are here on the map. Must have been off-season for this picture. There's that fort, which I guess looked quite a bit like that on the top of that first mountain there. There's really not all that much to see. And here's that beautiful little beach down in there, and then here's where the cable cars would be going. And then here's our forts. That one looked absolutely amazing in the sim, and then this little thing, whatever it is, looked about like that too. Not much to see there, although it looks like they might have some cannons on that one too. And even that little thing was hanging off in the sim. I didn't point it out because I didn't think it was worth mentioning, but whatever that is sticking off in the sim there too. There's one more fort over here, by the way, which is just totally flat in the sim. This did not make the photogrammetry, but that one's pretty neat looking. But not worth flying over there to check out. Totally flat. I really wish I could remember where that other huge heliport is over here. It's somewhere right along the water. And I think that one was pretty done up too, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time looking for it. As we cruised up here, here's where the big cathedral is, and you can tell it's much more cone-shaped in real life, looking right down on top of it like that. Here's where the Modern Art Museum is, the Viva Rio, which is their concert hall. And here's the old airport. And here's that original island where they were settling, which probably looked a lot different than that back in the day. That's where the French had their fort, all 500 of them. So I don't know how much of this was here because they made this by reclaiming some land, but that would be a small island for 500 people. I wonder if they shaved some of that thing off and used the dirt over here for the runways, maybe. Okay, then we came up here to the Customs House on Rat Island. And then over here to the Isla des Cobras. Ooh, look at that. They got a carrier there in real life. We didn't get to see that in the sim. Man, they got a lot of ships out here. There's those dry docks, which looked incredible. Boy, they got those things just strung right up there, don't they? Tied right up to one another. And then here's where that little submarine museum is, right there. So when you're flying by here, just look for this. I couldn't really point at it when we were flying by, but that big, long, orange-colored thing, and then right to the left of that, there's where the submarine is, and you can see it in the sim. I didn't get real close to it, though. Here's the Museum of Tomorrow, which we saw today. And they don't have any cruise ships there at the terminal either, do they? And then the wheel is this thing right here, the Yup Star, which, let's see how clear it gets here. Not very. So even though it didn't look great in the sim, probably still looks better than it does here on the satellite map. So we came over here, and here's why I think this is a mall. Look, they just got a bunch of restaurants in here, so I'm guessing that has to be a mall. I didn't see any shop names unless it's all just restaurants. Google Map was the same way. It didn't show any like clothing stores or anything like that, just all restaurants. And then over here is where the former royal palace was that became a zoo, or that became a museum. And look at that. They got the coverings on it now, so they're probably just trying to keep water from going in there when it rains. This part was covered in the sim, which may have always had a cover on it, but that was not. You could actually see the roof of it there in the sim. And then here's where the zoo is, which we really couldn't see at all. And then here's the Maracanã Stadium, largest in Brazil, which looked pretty good. We got a little flashing down inside of there. Man, all the pools just look so good out here. And I think they call this thing the Little Maracanã, even though it's called a gym here in the sim. I don't know what they do in there, though. Then we came up here to check out the Nilton Santos Stadium, which also looked great. That one might have even looked better than that last one. Oh, look at that. They got some insignias down there. We didn't get to see that. But we could see the track going around it and everything. And then we flew on up here to the airport, which doesn't look like much in here because it's covered. Actually, we can take this off. Hold on. Let's see what kind of planes they got down here. Since we didn't land there, we can remove that. Man, would I love to go to this place. Look at that. I'm so bad with plane profiles. You guys can probably tell what they are. Looking good. Did they have that thing that looked like a DC-3? Well, that's kind of like a DC-3, isn't it? Looks like one, except it was parked over here. And look at this. Even all those scraps or whatever that was. He modeled that in the sim, too. That is amazing. Awesome job. So cool. That was a really, really nice add-on. You got to throw that one in there. And then we came over here to where the whitewater rafting area was, which looked identical to that in the sim. So good. There's the on-road BMX center, and then over here is where they were doing the off-road stuff, I think. Right down here, we could see this little thing for sure. That might have had too many trees on it, but we could see that part of it. And then here's the shooting area, which also looked just like that. Can we see that tiny little thing that was over here? Whatever that was. There it is! What is that? It's not like a lookout tower, because it wasn't on top of the mountain. Maybe it was supposed to be a water tower or something they never finished. So also in the bookmark file, when you get it, all these little flags will be here. That just demarks the perimeter of the photogrammetry area, just in case you're wondering how far out you can go before you'll get to the bad stuff. But all of this is within it here, and if you looked at that bridge, you can see it's an elevated bridge till right here, and then it just goes like flat, like almost touching the water, but it just cuts off right there. You can see it from a distance, and here's where the big university campus is right here. That looks really good. It's worth a trip out there if you have a few extra minutes. It's cool. And then we came back down this way to check out Olympic Park, which looks just as vacant here as it did in the sim. Check that out. Wow. What a big area to not be using very often. And I wonder if this is the ritzy part of town. You could probably develop that into some high-end real estate right on the water like that. And then here's the Athletes Park, which is also just totally dead. Used to be the field hospital for COVID. And look at that, another helipad right there next to it. So this must be where all their convention centers are. I wonder if they're still using that, being in such a rundown area. It looks like it's a rundown area now, but maybe it just appears that way because it's so vacant. And then here was that quarry. That looked amazing. Man, that might have been one of my top 3 sites in the sim. That looks so good on this trip anyway. Maybe even the best quarry we've ever seen. That looked amazing. And then we came in here to our rolling floppy helipad. Very cool. Awesome trip, guys. We'll probably head out to another spot in Brazil. I'm going to fly over the other 2 or 3 cities that they have made photogrammetry out here, just to see how they look, because why the heck not while we're out here. Whatever it is, it's going to be awesome, and I can't wait to see you all again in the skies. Later.